Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I hope you all had a great week. Now before we get started, I just had to say that it seems like I forgot to schedule a stream for the month of January. Today is January 27th, so it looks like we are too late to have one this month. But I figured we can have two in the month of February. The first one's going to be next Saturday, and I'll see if I can line someone up for that stream. If not, we'll just have a quick chat session and then we'll do one closer to the end of February. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I'd be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now sit back and relax as we begin with today's episode. This first one takes place January of 2006. We're going to be heading to Murray County, Oklahoma, and the nearest town is Davis. After returning from a midnight hike, we pulled the truck into our camp area. As my wife and a friend of our son's, 15 years old, exited the truck on the driver's side, closest to the foot of the mountain where we were camping, something ran from the campsite and darted into the trees at the foot of the mountain. My son's friend told my wife that it was probably the kids that had toilet papered us the night before when we were out on our midnight hike. However, they had left earlier that day. My wife and the boy then moved towards the mountain and heard something very large run bipedal and scale the mountain and run away from them. My wife immediately yelled my name. I had already exited the bed of the truck and started towards the camp. When I ran to the foot of the mountain and attempted to go up it, the boy had also started to climb. It was almost impossible. It was almost straight up, and the only way that we could scale the mountain was by slowly pulling ourselves up by the limbs from the trees. My wife and the boy stated that whatever they saw was extremely fast and scaled the mountainside like it was nothing. When I suggested to my wife that it could have been a bobcat or a coon, she stated, "No way. The figure was too big and it sounded like it was on 2 feet. This happened many years ago when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I wouldn't describe the area I was in as backwoods necessarily, but it was a wooded 100-plus acre ranch. The land is in the southwest part of the United States. My family owns the property and we have a family reunion every year and all stay for about 5 days to camp. There's an area of the ranch where we all set up and cook, camp, and eat. Getting to that part of the ranch requires driving through a small village and several gates for about 2 miles. The first gate beyond the village is slightly past a set of railroad tracks. That's a lot of description, but it is relevant later in the story. Because I had been camping at the ranch for as long as I can remember, and the land was private, my parents would allow me to go off on my own during the day as long as I didn't go too far. I'd spend the time walking the property near our camp area looking for arrowheads or trying to catch tadpoles in the ponds. On this day, I left a large camp area after lunch, which was around 11:30. I told my mom I was going to a nearby creek. I planned on catching some tadpoles to bring back to camp and be back on time for a swimming trip my cousins were planning. They wanted to go to a nearby river, and I really didn't want to miss it. I made it down to the creek and got several tadpoles. I probably spent a total of 15 minutes down there. To get back to camp, I would have needed to either climb up a relatively steep embankment with a lot of loose rocks or circle around on a larger route with a flat trail. I'd usually go up the embankment, but I didn't have a top for the water bottle I caught the tadpoles with, and I didn't want to risk spilling them out, killing them. I had never walked a longer trail by myself, but I had with my dad and felt confident that I could find my way back to camp on it. As I walked back to camp, I had my head down looking for arrowheads in the washed out areas of the trail. I started feeling a little creeped out as I continued walking. We all know that feeling like someone is watching. It was unsettling, but I chalked it up to just getting spooked being on a trail by myself. Now the next part I can't explain whatsoever. It is as if a light switch was turned on or someone snapped their fingers and I came back to reality. Except when I came to, I wasn't on the trail I had been on before. I was near the railroad track and it was completely dark. My mom was standing in front of me, shaking my shoulders and yelling, "Where were you?" Two things I remember really clearly about the moments I came to are the look of fear, anger, and relief in my mom's tearful eyes as she was yelling at me, and two, the confusion I felt about what the hell was going on. The last thing I remember was walking on the trail back to camp, and now suddenly it was dark and I was at the railroad tracks leading to the ranch, which was over 2 miles away. The best way I can describe it is to compare it to the movie The Butterfly Effect. The main character would be living in one moment, then suddenly he'd wake up somewhere entirely different. My parents drove me back to camp and I learned it was 10:30 p.m. This meant that I had been gone for 11 hours, about 10.5 of which I can't account for to this day. My parents and all my family had understandably freaked the hell out when I had returned to camp. They had been looking for me all day. I was a really good kid growing up and almost never broke any rules, so my parents were baffled at my behavior. I tried to explain to them that I had no memory of getting to the tracks, but they didn't believe me. They thought maybe I got lost and was embarrassed to admit it. This was the only time I ever experienced something like this. I can't explain how unsettling it is not to be able to account for all those hours I was gone. Was it a coincidence that I had that creeped out feeling on the trail and then got lost for 10.5 hours of my life? I wish I had answers for what happened. Has anyone had anything similar happen? This one's going to be the last one for today. This one takes place in the summer of 1978. We're going to Chickasaw County, Mississippi, and the nearest town is Houston. It happened in Houston, Mississippi. My story still leaves me perplexed until this day. In 1978, I was 8 years old, but I can still remember this as if it happened yesterday. We were 1 week into our beginnings of the summer break. Me and my brother being 3 years older than I, we were so excited that we didn't have to go to bed at 8 o'clock anymore. You know, it's a summer break and all. Lucky for us, a man came to our door around 7 p.m. He asked my daddy, I think my daddy knew him, to give him a ride down to the rodeo that was on the outskirts of town. Because there he had gotten a new job doing what? I don't know or care. We begged Daddy to let us come along. We loved riding in the back of the truck, especially at night. And on this night, it was a full moon-lit night. Reluctantly, Daddy said yes. But on our way back home, after dropping off this man, that is when things got weird. As the truck approached this big pinkish house, now, this house had a huge yard, and dividing this yard was a fence to an even bigger hilly pasture. Lit by the moonlight, I saw what appeared to be an enormous dog running down a hilly pasture towards our truck. I was so captivated by the size of this dog. Not really a big deal, being that it was 1978 and it was commonplace to see dogs chasing vehicles. However, when this dog reached the fence, it leaped over and landed on all fours only to rise up on 2 legs, flawlessly continuing to run like a man, in seconds meeting and keeping parallel with our truck. Keep in mind Daddy was driving. I was sitting on a toolbox in the back on the trucks nearest to the creature, and my brother was next to me, who was somehow fixated on the opposite side of the road. I was literally paralyzed with fear, only able to close and reopen my eyes and shake my head. This creature was covered with grayish hair from head to toe, appearing to have breasts with black eyes shimmering in the moonlight. Its eyes dotted at my oblivious daddy driving and then at my brother, but then focused on me. It beckoned me to come to it with its left hand, and then I closed my eyes, shaking my head furiously in order to wake myself up from this nightmare. This creature, seeing that, as if to say, "I am real," without leaving the border of the yard, stepped under the only night light on that entire road. This light was at least 20 feet up. Wow, that few minutes feeling like hours. This thing's body covered 8 or 9 feet of that nightlight pole. The most frightening thing was a not quite human face that seemed to be mouthing words to me as it continued beckoning me with a very frustrating expression. It looked nothing like an ape and nothing like a man except for the human nose that was wide and its lip movements. It could have easily grabbed me from the back of the truck, being that the border of the yard was at least 20 feet from the road. It just continued beckoning until the truck got out of sight. I didn't regain full mobility and speech from being fear-stricken until the truck pulled up into our driveway. I told my folks what I saw. Daddy said he didn't see anything. However, my parents, being super religious, knew that I wouldn't be so foolish as to tell them some outlandish lie. They just said that it was a spirit and that I needed to pray. However, the question that my mama asked my brother racks my brain until this day. She asked him, "You were sitting right next to him. Why didn't you see anything?" My brother said, "In the field on the opposite side of the road, he was frightened by the giant white African lion chasing the truck. At 8 years old, I had watched a lot of PBS Network to know that Mississippi, especially Houston, Mississippi, had no African lions. So my question will always be, was there 2 creatures? And was this an ambush?" I hope you all enjoyed these encounter stories today. All different accounts, although the first 2 had a camping theme to it. The last one is unusual to say the least. 2 brothers sitting in the back of a truck, both seeing 2 different things. What was it they witnessed? If the first brother saw a Sasquatch, what did the second brother see? If these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share them, please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. It's time to thank the current OC members, and if you want to learn more about the OC membership program, please head on over to the Communities tab on my channel to learn more. The current members are Jim, Teresa, Elizabeth, and Joe. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.